How's it going? This is Spencer with Foundation Drum Academy, and today we're talking about how to learn songs fast on the drums. I mean fast as in, if you were called this morning and you had 8 or 10 hours to prepare for, let's say, a 10-song set, what would you do? This is what I would personally do, and I've been called upon the morning of the gig many times, and so this is not out of the ordinary that a drummer might get called for this type of thing. So the main key is having a system to do this, and I'm gonna teach you my system, but before we dive in, I wanna share with you this cheat sheet that we're gonna talk about today is found at our website, foundationdrum.com/chart. And this is the exact chart maker I use to learn songs quickly. If I had to learn 10 songs for a gig tonight, this is what I would use for all of the 10 songs. Okay, so first off, you must have a system to make quick charts. There is no possible way that someone can learn 10 songs in one day and memorize each song and all the beats and all the starts and stops and everything. I mean, maybe there's like 2 guys out there, but I hate to break it to you, it's probably not you and it's definitely not me. So this is the chart maker that I use. I didn't make this system up, but if you want to make one, you draw 2 lines on the top. It's the song section. So it says intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Second section is the number of bars for each one of the sections. 8 bars for the intro, 8 bars for the first verse, and so on. And then the bottom section is notes or which grooves are being played, anything important to be learned. And remember, this can be found at foundationdrum.com/chart. So what I would do is I would make all 10 charts just listening. And what I usually do is I listen and I pause, and then I do the next section, or I just write them as I'm listening. This can literally be done in however long the song is, plus a couple minutes. I wanna say something really important, that if you want to be able to do something like this, it's so critical that you know how to read and write music, because as you're listening, you can write down what's being played, and then when you're playing it, you can read what's coming up. So it just eliminates the need for memory so much. You don't have to rely on keeping everything up here. It's like you can keep it on the paper and just rely on what you know is going to happen. So it's all there on the paper, written down. So I highly encourage you to learn how to read and write. Drum parts are pretty simple to read and write, and it just takes a little effort and it'll really pay off. Okay, the second step, after I have the charts done, what I do is I try to practice each song by itself a number of times before moving on to the second one. I don't just go through each one of the 10 songs in order and repeat over and over, because learning a bunch of songs and trying to just like plow through the whole set multiple times is like too much for our brains to take in, or at least for mine. I find it much more effective to just do one song and like chip away at that one for a while, maybe like 3 or 4 times max, and then move on to the next one. And as you work through the set, you gain a greater understanding of each song. And then maybe later, if there's still time, you can work through the whole set a couple more times. And as a side note, many times where I've been called to do a gig the day of, I haven't had access to a drum set to sit down and practice. So it's literally like writing notes, listening through, and doing mental practice. And don't overlook the value and how important mental practice is, because if you're sitting down and thinking through, intently listening to the songs and like thinking through each one of the sections and committing it to memory and like mentally preparing the transitions between the parts, it really helps and your brain is able to process it. It's not a necessity to have to sit down and practice unless the parts are complicated enough that you actually need to work the stuff out. But let's say everything in the set is made up of beats and parts that you're physically capable of doing on the kit, then in that case, it's just a matter of mentally piecing it all together. And you can do that without even sitting down at the drums. So like I was mentioning, a really important part of this is when you're listening, you want to anticipate what's coming up. And if you're listening to a recording, you're actually hearing the drums that are being played. Like if there's a leading fill that says that the chorus is coming up, that's like kind of a cheat for your brain. As much as possible as you're listening, you want to be thinking ahead of any cues that the actual recordings are going to give you, so that your brain is forced to be thinking ahead and know what's coming up before you have any audible cue on the recording. The next aspect of what I try to do is get a set list from the artist and know the order of the songs. In the same way that I mentally try to think through all the transitions of the sections of each song, I also like to have the bigger picture and know, let's say the 10 songs are these. I like to think of how the flow is gonna go from the first to the second song and just mentally prepare, like, okay, this first one's slower, and then I'm gonna be transitioning to this faster one, and then changing sticks for this one, or whatever the transitions will be. I like to just mentally prepare and think through what's going to be happening from one song to the next. And then the last thing is knowing the tempos of the songs, whether you're starting at the beginning of the song, whether you're counting it off, time signatures and whatnot. Like those bigger aspects of the music you want to have ready, especially if you're providing the tempo and clicking off the band, then you're going to need to have a metronome ready and have all of that stuff dialed in. So be sure to ask the artist, just finding out all those details ahead of time and mentally preparing. So those are the 4 things that I like to do to prepare to get a full set of songs ready fast. And there have certainly been times where I've been called for a gig, had to prepare, and then not even had a rehearsal. So that's another layer of it being mentally prepared for, is just being confident in your skills to write notes, to read your notes, and then just be able to kind of mentally juggle all these different aspects of what is happening. Like playing well, keeping track of what's happening on the kit, and keeping track of your chart, keeping track of what's coming up, and then you're, in the back of your mind, you're thinking of which song is coming up and whether you're gonna have to count that one off. I know it sounds like a lot, but the more you can practice this whole process in the practice room or on your own, where it's not actually on a gig, the better off you'll be. Many drummers may not want to go to these lengths, but you can actually practice writing out charts. Write out 4 songs, try to make charts, and then see if you can add those to a playlist. After you learn them, see if you can play straight through them and not miss anything. It's like a really good little project to exercise all these skills. So I want to hear from you. If you've ever been in a situation where you've had to learn music really quickly, what did you do that I didn't mention that other drummers can benefit who might be reading these comments? So comment those down below. If you've got anything out of this video, be sure to share it with a friend, like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us at Foundation Drum Academy, and we'll see you on the next one.